Damn, this burger's good. Yo, Chinaman, taste some of that American democracy. You, me, rap battle now. America, the most powerful force. We're shooting down y'all while we're winning awards. Come on, man, you think you can rap? You probably work in a sweatshop and eat cat.
Hey, you f***ing frat. Your mama told me you need a smack. A Chinatown here, a Chinatown there. Before you even know it, Chinatown everywhere.
What? Huh? Could you say that again? Cause I barely understood a word that you said.
But we're the best fighter. Nothing will be finer. Soon the whole world will be made in China.
This is the #1 search in all of the world. Google trending today. Who won the debate? I want to answer that question off the top before we get to highlights, because it is really, really definitive and it's very, very clear. Here we go. The article of the day from the Daily Mail. Who won the debate? Authoritatively, JD Vance declared winner over Tim Walz. This is in Daily Mail poll, but also in CBS, in CNN, on NBC. There's only one person that thinks that Tim Walz won, and it's Rachel Maddow, and she's crying over it. We have footage of her crying literal tears. I hope that's our Salt That Lib of the day. If it's not, let's make sure that we get that. This is Rachel Maddow salting so bad last night. On the verge of tears. You could hear her voice cracking. It's amazing. A real just make sure that you can't have this much sodium at one time. There's going to be so much sodium flowing, so much salt flowing in November. We got to make sure that we build up our capacity, that we capacity build. So we'll make sure that you get some salt today with the Rachel Maddow clip, which is hysterical. Oh, man. So JD Vance wins, and JD Vance can leave New York the victor after his one and only debate, vice presidential rival Tim Walz, according to Daily Mail. The CBS showdown just 35 days before the general election was a chance for the vice presidential picks to prove that they were qualified a heartbeat away from the presidency. The candidates tangled over issues like abortion, immigration, gun violence, and the Middle East, all rigged issues that we can prove to you that were rigged and that Tim Walz lied about. Two took plenty of chances to present each other as extreme or weird. They also bigged up their bosses, Trump and Kamala Harris, in the final campaign sprint. But it was Vance who left the best impression on viewers. A strong start. Vance, a very nervy and creepy opponent, dodging questions. According to the Daily Mail poll, JL Partnership poll, of 800 likely voters, 50% say Vance won, 40% say Walz was the victor. I have a feeling there's some confirmation bias in that. Oh, yeah, baby. This is a amazing sign. And it's something that obviously was confirmed. Let's scroll on down to the poll performance there. There you go, Klein. Killer Klein is back. This is obviously confirmed by everyone who's watching. And I want to jump really quickly here so we can establish who won the debate. All right. I want to establish this very, very clearly. CNN says, CNN of all places, saying that Vance wins the debate. You got to see it. Here we go. CNN instant polling. Vance wins debate. Here's what CNN said live on air. Let's go. Clip on.
I think there was a clear lack of preparation and execution here on Walz's part.
I think actually it's the opposite. I think he had too much preparation.
Maybe, yeah.
He had so many lines that he was clearly trying to say that he didn't listen and said when JD Vance said one of the many things he really hit Kamala Harris on, not Tim Walz, but Kamala Harris, he didn't respond because he clearly had things in his mind. I think the lack of interviews that he has done with national media, with local media, it showed. He needed more reps.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, JD Vance is much more experienced at this, at public speaking, at defending himself.
So, wait a second. CNN is saying that Tim Walz is cringe. This is amazing. CNN, Vance won. He was much clearer. He hit Kamala Harris. And then also, it wasn't JD Vance who was weird.
What I think isn't as relevant as what I was hearing from Democrats who were kind of doing it, whatever you do to cringe over a text, they were not thrilled about that answer.
It was very cringy. I mean, and he should have known that it was coming.
It was very cringy. A reminder, we're going to get into JD Vance's, because JD Vance could have gone for the jugular. And we know that JD Vance has the capacity to do this. So why didn't he do it last night? You know, JD Vance could have, like Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, could have reached into the rib cage and ripped the heart out, preferably and politically, of Tim Walz and held it in his beating hand. He could have done it, but he didn't. And we know why, actually. We know why. We've done some research on this, and it's actually quite interesting. Here's John Carl. Dude, these are like Democrat paid propagandists saying, these are the people who have led the smear campaign against JD Vance, saying JD Vance killed it. Watch.
You know, but first, David, I got to say, I think that Walz did seem unsteady. And frankly, what I saw in Walz is somebody who has not faced questions on a national stage since he became the Democratic nominee. He was simply out of practice. I mean, I don't know why they've done it, but they've kept him out of the limelight. They've kept him away from reporters. They haven't had him do any interviews. And he was clearly unsteady through much of that debate. And in contrast, JD Vance was very smooth. He took the arguments not to Walz. He was very respectful of Walz, took it to Kamala Harris.
Ooh, very respectful, very smooth, very demure. Wow. Mindful. He was actually very mindful. Pretty interesting. Do we have this one from CBS? Let's load that one, boys. I got that. Let's load this one. The CBS Snap poll. This was obviously on CBS. Very demure. Oh yes, thank you, Ashley. all the young kids on staff keep me up with the slogans. It's very interesting because across the spectrum, the corporate media who have been slandering JD Vance, we're all running to praise him. It's incredible. I think we have this last clip from CBS. Killer Clown, let me know when it's loaded. Okay. Because this one's wild. CBS did run the debate, and they did everything they could to run JD Vance into the ground and said he ran circles around them. And then they said this.
Economy, I'll make a political point, which is that what Vance did was something Donald Trump was incapable of doing during his presidential debate, which is repeatedly saying, if Kamala Harris was going to do these things, why didn't she in office? Now, whether voters buy that or not, Tim Walz mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act and a variety of other items under Biden. But returning to that political point has worked in the past for Donald Trump against Hillary Clinton. We'll see if it works this time. I'd like to make a final point on tone. The JD Vance on that stage was very different than what people may have seen in podcasts. But then there was an air of unreality about it. He talked about bipartisan solutions with nuance of a kind we never saw during the Trump administration. He talked.
There's nuance. He's making the point that Kamala Harris didn't do anything. But Kamala Harris, hasn't done anything. This is CBS. This is CBS's direct reaction to the debate. That JD Vance makes the point that Kamala Harris hasn't done anything. Hasn't done jack. Of course, you would expect that JD Vance's friend and ally, Don Jr., would be making a very smart and cutting remarks after this in the spin room, and he was. Here's a little dive into Don Jr. in the spin room after the debate, saying this was a masterclass by JD Vance, and we agree. Here we go.
Thanks, Jake. I'm here in the spin room with Donald Trump Jr. You urged your dad to pick JD Vance as his running mate famously a few months ago. How do you think he did tonight?
I thought it was a masterclass. It was just an incredible performance, just real command of the facts. Didn't let sort of the fake fact check, try to steamroll him. He came back with actual facts. I think he literally won every issue across the board. I think he was actually very comfortable on so many of the issues that Republicans tend to fail. He was probably more comfortable in those issues than most Republicans are, even on our strong points. So I think it was an incredible debate. We've been leading with incompetence and weakness for 4 years. The world has watched, and they've capitalized on that. Our enemies, Iran, wants Kamala Harris to be president. They've said that. They've leaked documents to her, stolen from our campaign, that they hacked. Russia has said they want Kamala Harris to be president. Because a weak America is good for Russia. A weak America is good for Iran, and a weak America is great for China, all of whom are chomping at the bit for a Harris-Walz administration and the continuation of the Biden policies that have failed America for the last 3.5 years.
And I should.
So let's establish a couple of things. And here's the CBS poll about who won the debate, showing that JD Vance won a debate. Again, they did everything they could to rig it against JD Vance. And this is the point that I wish to make here. This debate was probably not for you. I've thought about this a bit. I think everyone's very, very proud of the way that JD Vance performed here. But this debate was actually not for us. And I've thought about this, and I want to like cement it here. Donald Trump has already won us. Elections are not about subtraction, they're about addition. This is the last chance for the campaigns to be on the same stage together. The rest of the race, it will literally be a sprint to the finish. MAGA rallies and ad blitzes. Here's President Trump walking into a UFC event. And we've been in these rooms with him. We've seen Donald Trump do this. We've been up close. We dapped up President Trump in the front row. We're here watching this happen. You watch 30,000 people in Madison Square Garden screaming their heads off for Donald Trump, walking up to the octagon. Joe Rogan dabbing him up. Dana White, every fighter going up and like blessing Trump. It's crazy. They win their fights. They hop the fence. They hop the cage. And they walk over and they pay homage to Trump. We've won the men, okay? We've won the guys who are in the arena. The battle-hardened men and people that like actually have a good, sturdy spine. Those people are voting Trump. All the polls show they're voting Trump. What we haven't done, and this is obviously because of the rigged nature and the psyop nature of our corporate press, the lying, the egregious and just endless, ceaseless lying, is there are independents and women who've broken hard against the Republican Party. We're talking like in huge numbers, especially single women, broke really, really hard against the Republican Party. That's the addition. You need to peel off 1% of that. JD Vance, and we've proven this. We played clip after clip of JD Vance just throwing haymakers at Kamala Harris, at Tim Walz. He has the capacity to just flame these guys, and he could have last night. I mean, he could have reached in for the jugular and ripped it right out, straight through the rib cage, ripped out the heart, and he could have done it. He has the power to do that. But what JD Vance showed last night was deep restraint, calm, not being too overly emotional. Think about when like dad comes home, right? You don't want dad to go flying off into fits of rage. You want dad to be calm. You want dad to be level-headed. You want there to be like a sense that someone's in charge. And that's what I think people have been missing, right? You need people who are in charge. They always said the adults were back with Joe Biden. Nobody ever felt like that, right? And you need Donald Trump to have an ally with him running on the ticket who locks in to that role, right? Donald Trump is minted. Donald Trump is Donald Trump, and he's beloved by the American people. You don't need to win over the champions and the fighters and the brawlers anymore. That's been done. The Nelk boys, Theo Vaughn, Elon Musk. Think of all the like podcasts. It's like, it's Tucker Carlson, like that, bro. You go down to the bars, you go down to the college campuses like we do here. Like the young men are Trump, okay? The men are Trump. You needed to see something from JD Vance, and I want to talk about how impressive it was last night, what we saw. JD Vance comes from such a deficit. Okay, if he's there, if he goes into that debate saying, you know where we need to make up a couple points, where we can take from the other team, a bunch of frat boys are not suddenly going to think, oh, Tim Walz is great. I too want to lift my pinky up in the air and go do jazz hands and kick my feet like I'm in the Rockettes. I too want to like dance around like this all day. No frat, like fighter bros are not suddenly going to like think Kamala Harris is super cool. Like that's going to be super rad in the industry to be like, Kamala's my girl. No, man, like that's not cool. Okay. And it never will be. But what JD Vance could do last night would be to take from a pool, primarily women that are on the edge saying, secretly, and we have these women, we've interviewed them. Get me that short, please, of the woman who came up to our microphone and said, I hate Trump and I'm voting for him anyway. Get me that short. Those women exist. We know it because we do Man on the Streets, and we go out we go out and we actually talk with them. Those women exist. And that was JD Vance's target audience. I wanted JD Vance to go in and rip the guy's head off. Metaphorically, politically, and proverbially. But that doesn't add. You can steal, you can take in an election that's going to be won on the razor's margins. You can take the 1% of women, or 2%, 5% of women. If you are able to take some of them and move them over into your camp, even if they say they hate Donald Trump, but they want an adult in charge, they don't want an effeminate man who is erratic, screaming and crazy and ruffled and sweating and lying to you, obviously. They don't want that. And if you are to take from that camp, and you have to do it in a way where you're not a bare knuckle brawler, you have to do it in a way that is exactly how JD Vance did it last night. Calm, under control, someone who's under control, someone who's an adult. Last thing I'll say. Imagine being a woman who is an independent, and I know these women exist because we find them, we talk with them in our shows. Imagine being a woman who turned on the TV last night because you're kind of interested. You never seen JD Vance, you never seen Tim Walz, and Donald Trump you've seen, and Kamala Harris you've seen. Those are known quantities. I think people were actually far more interested in this VP debate than they were in the Kamala Trump debate. I got to be honest with you. And we saw that in our streaming numbers. Imagine turning on the TV last night and you are expecting to see the caricature of JD Vance. JD Vance's caricature has been painted as a leering, goblin-esque ogre, drooling, knuckle dragging his hairy knuckles as he lurches and mouth breathes, watching your children sleep. That's the image that's been painted of JD Vance. Just this monster. Instead, you see the exact opposite. Calm, sharp, thoughtful, consistent, truth-telling, capable of handling insults that have been flung at him, like fact checks that are wrong, vicious moderators, and doing it without getting ruffled or yelling or attacking or throwing hands, and just being the man. And you watch that and you're like, wow, I've been lied to. That's the deficit that JD Vance made up last night. Tim Walz was supposed to win this debate. I think we have the predicted marketplace. Can we grab that real fast? Tim Walz was supposed to win this debate, was 84% chance of winning this debate, and he lost. That's the deficit, betting market breaking performance that JD Vance had. And that's what's really impressive here. Something really neat. Can you pop that up? Look at this. He broke the betting markets. And that's because the betting markets said, look at that. Right there. This is Tim Walz's chance. You can see here, it was above, Tim Walz's chance of winning the debate was above 80%. And JD Vance crashed it by 45 points. And now JD Vance has been declared the victor by everyone from CNN to the New York Times to NBC News to CBS News. All of the polling shows JD Vance. There's not a single poll that shows Tim Walz won last night. How amazing. The reason that he was so high in the poll, it was because the entire table was rigged against JD Vance in the debate. The moderators, so nasty. Tim Walz tossed softball after softball. Moderators fact-checking. Despicable, disgusting behavior. Sickening, repulsive, reptilian. Oh, they said they wouldn't fact check, and then they did it every single comment until JD Vance called them out on it and destroyed them. And they had to cut his mic because it was too good. Baby. So JD Vance being able to pull that off is, man, that truly is a political masterclass. And the reality was that debate wasn't for me. I'm proud of JD Vance. It wasn't for me. They already got my Trump vote. I got my red MAGA cap. That debate was intended to be the last final message to bridge the gap for undecideds and women, I believe. And JD Vance performed absolutely beautiful. He overperformed in a way that I'm not sure we'll ever see again. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the person that debate was intended for. Here we go. We actually met her on the street just last weekend. Let's go.
I'm actually not a Trump fan. I think that he is narcissistic, he's egotistical, he's cruel. I don't like the way that he treats people. However, when I heard that Biden was no longer going to run, I was so hopeful that we would have a stand-up person to represent our country. And it's not Kamala. One of our family members was talking to us about how he chose his surgeon, and he chose a very narcissistic surgeon who is very good at what he does. He said that he ended up making this choice not because he was kind, but because he was too egotistical to let himself fail on a life-threatening surgery. And I feel that way about Trump. I feel like even though he is narcissistic, I feel like he is too egotistical not to protect our country, and protection is what we need right now. And in the world that we're living in, I feel like Trump is the right person.
It's easy to discount these voters and to say, hey, we don't care about them, or they're not our brand of conservatism. But actually making America great again is going to require a huge, diverse swath of Americans. And it's really important to know that, like, Fight Club Octagon Trump, while that Trump kicks total ass, we must win, right? Like, you must win. So much like a fighter has to execute and change up their tactics in order to win, which is the ultimate goal. You will win or lose. You've got to win. You've got to change up a little bit of the tactic. And that's what JD Vance did in his masterclass. Look at this. Here's further proof. I saw this yesterday. I don't follow his account. Very interesting. Someone who hates JD Vance posted this. Somebody who's publicly, viscerally attacks JD Vance goes and posts this. Look at this. Lauren Lee. Let's see. What's the account? She got 30,000 followers. All right. She's a humanist, an entrepreneur, a theorist. Doesn't at all. She's an independent. Lauren Lee was the actual target market for this debate. What did she have to say? I'm not a fan of JD Vance. I'm a critic of JD Vance, she says. However, his performance tonight is nothing short of artful. We saw the writer of Hillbilly Elegy, somebody incredibly articulate and reflexive. The man was present, empathetic, and unable to be flustered by obvious bias of the moderators. I was particularly impressed by his pushback against the war machine. It calls for immediate diplomacy. He clearly solidified the Republican Party as the party of peace. Whew. If it is done in earnest, it marks a critical turning point. Long overdue party realignment. There's a reason Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard have sided with Trump. I hope tonight reminded us of a decorum that we all need in politics. Again, unity, strength, and kindness will win the day. They certainly won the debate tonight. That's a new JD Vance voter. This is a brand new JD Vance voter. This is a brand new Donald Trump voter. Lauren Lee, I can assure you, I don't know who Lauren Lee is, but I can assure you, this is not your average Trump. This is not your average Trump voter. You get back to the profile. All right. Maybe we'll invite her on the show. But like, I saw this tweet. I said, man, this is JD Vance winning hearts and minds. This is who the debate was intended for. And if you peel off 1%, 3%, 5% of like independents and women, there is no path. Donald Trump's already doing 25% with black men under 50. 1 in 4. And there's a deep, silent Trump movement that I think is far more powerful than anyone cares to acknowledge. We find this also when we go out into the streets and ask people looking at us and going, you know who I got? I'm walking away. You know who I got? And they walk away. And this debate was for them. So I don't mean to belabor this point too long. I just want to say, like a Now that I've had time to like think about it, it was masterful. The next debate, this is why JD Vance is now on my timeline as like the 2028 contender. Because the next debate, you know, JD Vance clearly has the capacity for violence. That's a Jordan Peterson paraphrase, right? Like to have the capacity for violence, to be like that is what a man is, right? To be like under control, but to be dangerous. This was JD Vance, and it's really impressive. JD Vance at his best yesterday. Let's rock and roll here. JD Vance making the point again and again and again that Kamala is the president. Kamala is currently in charge. This was such a smart thing. Every single question he just returns back. I have not been invited into the debate preps. Maybe sometime in the near future. A lot of the people who are going to be running for president in the future, they all come on this show. You're right. You see them all. And so maybe I'll be invited into debate prep. We were invited into Vivek's debate prep, for instance, during the debate in Miami. It was really fun. Definitely broke some windows and walls. I got to tell you, the first rule of debate is you're the candidate. You talk about what you want to talk about. You set the agenda. I mean, if they ask a question about climate change, that's what they're talking about. That's not what you're talking about. You have a message, and the message is that Kamala Harris has wrecked the country. And so every single question needs to return back to Kamala Harris has wrecked the country, actually, because she's in charge. You're asking me a question about how bad things are. America's a shambles. Kamala Harris is the problem. How is she going to solve a problem that she created? She is the problem. Is she going to solve herself? How exactly? Explain that. Here's JD Vance doing this in one of the many moments he did this. Masterful, genius. Go.
Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer, a lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do. And some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it. Because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies, and what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%, open the American southern border, and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris has such great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now. Not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plan, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense and they don't have wisdom, because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world. So when people say that Donald Trump's economic plan doesn't make sense, I say look at the record. He delivered rising take-home pay for American workers. Now, Tim admirably admits that they want to undo the Trump tax cuts, but if you look at what was so different about Donald Trump's tax cuts, even from previous Republican tax cut plans, is that a lot of those resources went to giving more take-home pay to middle-class and working-class Americans. It was passed in 2017, and you saw an American economic boom unlike we've seen in a generation in this country. That is a record that I'm proud to run on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom so that you can afford to live the American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills. It's going to stop when Donald Trump brings back common sense to this country.
What an answer. And it wasn't the question. It's genius. What do you think about having climate change in Martha's Vineyard? What's going on with my friend in Martha's Vineyard? SPF 50 or 80, like whatever they would ask, like 5 questions about climate change up front. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things that are actually problems for the American people. You know, you can do that, right? Like, it's like I want to grab every Republican. I want to smack them around a little bit. Grab every Republican, sit them down, smack them around like, hello, you don't have to bite on the bait. You can actually just talk about the things that you want to talk about. It's amazing. And we watched that all last night. Now, we saw the opposite of that. So that's when daddy's home, right? That's daddy coming home. I mean that like did you have a strong father? Did you have like a dad that showed up for you? What was it like when dad came home from work? Was it like a calming, like authoritative presence in the home? A lot of people feel that. In a good, positive family structure, that's what it should be. This is what it felt like, actually, watching like just a calm adult, like explain things calmly and cleanly. This is the opposite, actually, of that vibe. This is a frenetic, feline energy that is all over the place and glitchy, sweaty, and weird. Here we go.
You previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it's only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety.
I become friends with school shooters. I become friends with school shooters. It's probably the line from the night that people are going to remember. In fact, Tim Walz was asked about this comment. I think this will follow him around quite a bit. Tim Walz decided to go to some convenience store, I think, afterwards. Is this clip D, ALX? Yeah. Okay. He was asked, like, hey, how many school shooters are you friends with? Let's go.
What do you think your strongest moment was tonight?
Oh, just, I think it was a good debate. The public got to see a contrast. And I think the ending sums it up. The democracy issues important.
Governor, you said you become friends with school shooters during the debate. Can you clarify what you meant on that?
Can you clarify what you meant?
How long can you stare at a pizza, dude? Don't think too hard about that. It's like kind of weird. Dude, you said you're friends with all these school shooters. That's not a victorious, that's him and his creepy ass wife. That's not a victorious answer. It's the wrong energy. It's the wrong energy if you're trying to convince people that you're in charge, that you are powerful and in charge, calm, and can lock it in. Speaking of locking it in, dude, like this is Tim Walz. He was asked one question that he should have been prepared for. It has to do with something we covered yesterday, which is that he, for some reason, for no reason, I guess, nobody likes a liar. All right, take a step back. Like nobody likes just being openly lied to, but some people lie for fun. Some people are so insecure they just lie about everything. Yeah. Okay. All right. And Tim Walz lied. Tim Walz lied about China. I want to get to this. Hold please. I want to get to this because it's very important. This is like, if there's one thing that was devastating in this debate, it was the exposing of Tim Walz as someone who's willing to lie for literally no reason and incapable of like defending or explaining those lies. This is the single worst moment of the debate for Tim Walz. And yes, I include him saying he's friends with school shooters in that. Here we go.
Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, Many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID. And I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community. And then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.